Welcome back, AACPS staff. In this short video tutorial, we're going to move on to the topic of creating lessons from right here inside of Nearpod. So here we are on our Nearpod dashboard, and I could click into a folder, maybe even into a subfolder before I click to create, but I can also build from right here on my dashboard and add it to a folder later. So I'm going to select my white button up here at the top that says Launch the Lesson Builder. And my first options are to determine what exactly I want to create or where I want to pull from. So that first large button across the top allows me to create from scratch, so I'm starting brand new. I can also upload a lesson, explore the Nearpod library, and use the Google Slides add-on from right here in this creation window as well. So we're going to choose to create from scratch. And then it's going to load a similar window, which basically asks me, what do I want to use to create? Blank slides and activities, pre-made activities, or uploading. And we will see that these three options stay with us throughout the creation process. So I'm going to choose blank slide and activities, and then it's going to give me, again, those same three options, but now it breaks down what exactly I can add within these categories. So when I have blank slide and activities selected, I do have the option at the top to add a blank slide. And then underneath of that, I have a category here for all the different activities that Nearpod has available. I have a category for media, and finally a category for math manipulatives. And if I wanted to add any of these, I would simply check the box. You'll notice I can check a handful of these at the same time to begin adding all kinds of different things. But we'll come back to that option after we get a little bit of content. Because typically, as teachers, when we start building a lesson, it does start with adding the content that we want to give our students. So I'm going to do that by choosing a blank slide to get started. Once this window loads, if we take a look around, it's not dissimilar to creating in PowerPoint or Google Slides. Down the left-hand side, we have what is known as the slide sorter, where we'll be able to see each of the thumbnails for different slides in our presentation. Across the top, we have some basic information about the lesson, the toolbar for creating. We have our workspace here in the middle, and then over on the right-hand side, we have an option to choose the theme or style of the lesson that we are creating. One of the things that is important when creating a Nearpod lesson is exactly the same thing you would expect if you are building in, say, Google Drive or OneDrive, and that is when you first click to create a file, it gives it a placeholder title. So right now, this slides file, this Nearpod lesson, is titled Untitled Lesson, and it has a number 15 because apparently in my library I have 14 other untitled lessons at the moment. So I simply click here to give this a different title. You'll also see you have the option to add some lesson details here. This includes descriptions and tags, grades and subjects, and all of these can make your lessons more searchable. If you find that you have a lot of content in your Nearpod library and you're struggling to remember if you put this particular lesson in folder A or folder B, being able to search for it by some of those descriptions, tags, grade level and subject and so on can all be helpful to you. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that for now. Another important thing to notice is that everything saves automatically. So if I click to begin adding a title here, you'll see the word saving appears up here, just a little bit to the right of my title, and after a moment it says saved. And even the words themselves disappear after a moment and are simply replaced by this cloud with the check mark on it to indicate that this is being saved safely to your Nearpod dashboard with all of your other lessons. Let's turn our attention to the slide themes that appeared over here on the right, but once we started working, they collapsed. If we pop them back out, you'll notice we have a bunch of different light backgrounds with just a pale color behind them. Then we get into some more bright and vivid, but just like you would expect if you're designing in Slides or PowerPoint, you can have a nice vivid background or something a little more subdued to add some style or theme to your slides. Once I click to add that, you'll notice it changed the color of the text I had already typed. So it does apply that theme just as you would expect from your experience in Slides and PowerPoint. So here we have our slide. We have a little bit of content that we've added here, and we can click to add a little bit more. So now let's turn our attention to the left-hand side here. I mentioned this is where you'll see thumbnails for all of the slides in your lesson, and the way that you add additional slides and even other types of activities is to choose the Add New from the top of this window on the left. When we click Add New, we see the exact same window we saw when we were getting started. So I can add a blank slide. I can still bring in pre-made activities from Nearpod. I can upload some of my own materials and start combining things together into a lesson. I can also add these different activities, media, and math manipulatives, and select on multiple to add them at the same time. If I select an activity and choose Add, it does appear as the very next slide from what I was just working on. So I was working on slide number 1. When I added the poll, it added it as slide number 2. But I can simply drag and drop these into a different order at any time as I am building my lesson so that the flow and order of information is exactly what I want my students to see. Again, very similar to working in Google Slides or PowerPoint. If we go back to our content slide, let's turn our attention to the toolbar here for actually building your different lesson slides. We've got our typical undo and redo. We've got our select tool to turn off another tool when we're done using it. We have the ability to add additional text boxes by simply selecting the text tool and clicking anywhere in the workspace. I can drag this to a different position, add my text. I even have options to rotate it, resize, all kinds of different things that I can do when I'm building here inside of Nearpod. Nearpod also works in orders. Again, this is something we are familiar with a lot of our online art programs or slides, Google Drawings, things like that. The first object that you put on the page is in the back or bottommost layer. Each additional item that you put on the page on top of that will come out in a layer on top of that, and using the order tool can allow you to bring things to the top, send them to the back, so that you can get things in the order that you intend for your lesson. Layout allows you to choose the design of the slide itself. Whenever you click to add a new slide, you're always going to get the title and paragraph slide, but you can easily change to the title only, title and subtitle, title with 2 columns, and so on, or select blank and then add your own text boxes as you go. Our next option is to add shapes, add images, change the background, add video, audio, include GIFs, and then we have some annotation tools such as a crayon, highlighter, and an eraser to begin adding some digital ink or annotations to what we are working on. Turning our attention back to our Add New over here at the top of our slide sorter, you'll also notice a drop-down to the right that allows some additional options. For example, I can add a quick slide. That'll be the exact same style as what I'm already working on. Again, that title and paragraph style. I can upload files, which will allow me access to my desktop, Google Drive, even OneDrive. And finally, I can add a quiz, which would allow me to quickly begin building some questions here for my students to answer as a part of this lesson. Our final stop on this quick tour of building right here inside of Nearpod is to take a look at the options in the upper right-hand corner. We have our Share button. When we click on Share, you can invite people to the file by typing in their email address, but you also have the option to get a link in order to share, and then you can consider the permissions that you want to give the person when you send them the link. By default, you are sending them their own copy of your Nearpod file. This is great if you're sharing with someone else who teaches the same content area and grade level as you, because when they click on the link, they will be prompted to get a copy of your file that is added to their own Nearpod library and is therefore editable to them. The second option is to change it so that they can edit this file. That would give them permission to make changes to your file. So make sure that you intend to collaborate with that person on the building of this file if you choose that option. The third option here is can view. They would be able to see everything in the file, but they wouldn't be able to edit it or make any changes to your lesson. Our next option here is to preview the lesson. If you choose preview, it allows you to view it in the same window you would see if you were delivering the lesson live for your students. So if at any time during the lesson building process, if you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if this looks the way I think it should for my students, you can always select on the preview and it'll open it in that exact lesson delivery window for you to ensure that this looks exactly the way that you think it should for your students. And you can navigate forward and backwards through the different activities as you are adding them to the lesson. Our final stop up here is save and exit. And of course, once you have all of your content, all of your activities added here, you can choose save and exit. This one's going to give me a little warning here that some of my slides are incomplete. That's fine. I can say exit, and it'll take me back to my Nearpod dashboard with a brand new thumbnail for the lesson that I just began creating right here at the top. So I hope this has helped give you a quick idea of what it'll look like if you create right here inside of Nearpod.